Please, Mr. Jones, it's almost Christmas, and we have no food, and all we want is one more episode of TV Guys.
I'm supposed to be grumpy. It's hard.
Yeah, you can't laugh. You can't ruin the bit with laughter.
Humbug.
There you go. Welcome to TV Guys. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And today we are visiting A Christmas Carol. Now, if there is one story that really is retold more than any other story, it's probably A Christmas Carol. You get versions of Romeo and Juliet, you get versions of Bible stories, you get versions of a lot of things get told a lot, but Christmas Carol, there are so many renditions of it. And so we're going to give our own rendition of it. We are going to cast A Christmas Carol using TV characters. Now, not the actors. We're not saying, oh, the actor who played this would make a good Scrooge. We're saying that actual TV character would be a good Scrooge or Ghost of Christmas Past or etc.
Yeah. And this was tougher than you think. Some of them kind of came really easily. Some of them, like Tiny Tim, we all talked about, is hard because there's not a lot of really great kid actors. Yeah. I mean, kid characters, I should say.
Yep, I'm proud of the one that I came up with for it, but you're right. It took some thinking, some digging to be like, what would I put as Tiny Tim? There's a couple of them that I'm like, what would I use? What would I use? And what's great about this one was actually the process of finding ones that we would pick. Feel free to do this on your own too. Like, as we're saying, you might be like, oh, that's a great pick, or you would do this yourself. But it is a fun process to be like, oh man, who would be this character? And then to finally come on someone and be like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's who would do it. So when we go down the list here, we'll talk about each character, of course. And I have a couple backups too for some of my guys.
Yeah, what it is, like I got like a whole list of, like, for each character, like a few Scrooges. Then I decided of these, like, which of these would be the best Scrooge. So I still have like all my backups we can talk about as we go as well.
Perfect. Yeah, and we also will have to kind of defend our idea too, and like what makes this character, and then that's what led us to thinking of this.
I cheated a couple times. We'll discuss that as we go, but I think every time I cheated, it's worth it.
Yep. There's one that I feel like I kind of stretch it a little bit, and I'll say it as we get there that it was a little harder, but anyway, so let's start off with the guy, Ebenezer Scrooge, the rich miser that doesn't enjoy Christmas, doesn't enjoy people. Yes.
Before we start with Scrooge, I have to start with another one, just because it will frame some of my answers, which is okay. I remember I said this is not going to be all about the Muppets, but in the Muppet Christmas Carol. It's one of the more accurate depictions of A Christmas Carol because they have Gonzo playing the part of Charles Dickens. He has Rizzo the Rat as his sidekick. And like anytime he's not directly talking to Rizzo, like 80% of what he says is direct lines from the original book.
Hey, Brian, thanks for making me a part of this.
So I was thinking, who'd be a good Charles Dickens narrator? I realized, no, like I'm going to go with the pairing, like a straight man Charles Dickens narrator with like a goofy sidekick. And it might be just because I'm rewatching this, but give me Captain Holt and Jake Peralta, and I have a whole framing set up for this. Okay.
Oh my goodness. All right, no, keep going.
Okay, so the point is that Jake will somehow make a comment that he's never even heard of or doesn't know anything about the story of A Christmas Carol, and Captain Holt has to rectify this. And so Jake realizes, like, oh my gosh, like Captain Holt's going to read me a story. And okay, this character, he's got big dad issues with Captain Holt. So I see him, and he's also a big movie and TV like reference guy. I can see him immediately setting up like a bed in the break room and framing it like he's Fred Savage in the beginning of Princess Bride, laying there and making Captain Holt sit at the bed like the grandpa, telling the story. So as they're going through this, Jake would be interjecting, kind of like Rizzo interjected, saying like, oh, like this TV character. And that would frame how the TV characters fall into place.
That is tremendous thinking. I like it. Because I knew that you're going to talk about narrator, is I thought of like, I go back to Dignity. I didn't do what you did where you had this huge creative thing. I'm just like, who is a very dignified TV character. And I thought of the most dignified guy that I would be like, you can tell me any story you want. And that's Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World. He would be a great narrator that would have that the dignity. I can't think of another word. My thesaurus is terrible. And not only that, but my thesaurus is also terrible.
Do you remember that there's an episode of Boy Meets World where Mr. Feeney does read A Christmas Carol, and by the end of it, everybody's asleep?
No, I don't remember that, but that would not be me. You deserve better, Mr. Feeney.
I like your choice, though.
Thank you.
So now we can go back into Scrooge.
All right, back to Scrooge.
I'm thinking we do your pick and my pick, and then once we have our picks, we can try and talk about who else we considered.
Sounds good. So again, rich miser, miserable old coot, cares only about money. To me, there's a couple people on TV that really honestly fit this, but I've been watching a lot of Simpsons, and Montgomery Burns is Scrooge to a T. There's like, I know that they did Scrooge McDuck, but they had to make him for like the Mickey one. Mm-hmm. They had to make him grumpier. I know his name's Scrooge too, but I'm like, I watch this and I'm like, dude, Burns is Scrooge. Everything for a nickel, penny pincher, like $1 out of his pocket is unheard of. That is too much to spend. This guy is Scrooge.
Also, I mean, Simpsons has been going on for 94 years now, and there's no way they haven't already done some kind of homage to Christmas Carol with him as Scrooge. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but it'd be surprised if they didn't already do it. But it's because it's such an obvious choice.
I'm 11 seasons in, and they haven't yet done something like that, but they have played within Christmas episodes where he is a bad guy. They haven't given him. No, they did do it. They did do it recently in season 11. What was it? I knew it. It wasn't even was a Christmas episode. So there's a Christmas episode in season 11 where the school goes under because they don't have enough funding. And so they go to Burns to raise money for it. And he just kicks all the kids out and whatever. And so the plot ends up being that this toy company under this false corporation name takes over the school as a private enterprise, but they're actually spying on the kids of doing focus research for the new toy for Christmas. And so they take all of their ideas, create this new toy, and then Bart and Lisa uncover it. And at the very end, then they do this narration over the end of it. And it's and Mr. Burns was visited in the night by 3 spirits. And so he comes in and he gives them all the money for it. We don't see him. We don't see his journey he has, but they do that at the end of it. So you're right.
I think you're is a better Scrooge. I went with just a guy who's always grumpy and cranky. And what would this character be like if he went through a change and got nice at the end? I went with Al Bundy from Married with Children.
Oh my gosh, I don't understand Al Bundy. He's got a great life, but he is so cranky.
Yeah, all the time. And he's not rich. I mean, the parallel could be, I was texting with Mike, or who's been on the podcast here, and he thinks that Modern Family, and I kind of agree with him, would do really well for doing A Christmas Carol. And Ed O'Neill was also the patriarch of that family as well. I think that he was rich in that show, but he was crankier in Married with Children. So I
have to say, Al Bundy was 1980s middle class. That is rich compared to today.
Yeah. For sure. Other people I considered were Red Foreman and Frank Barone from Everly's Raymond, that 70s show. And if you're going to go with an ironic, younger guy, Nick Miller could also be a Scrooge.
Oh, no, you can't do that to Nick. Nick's too lovable. I couldn't do that to Nick. Veto.
Well, he wasn't my pick. You're vetoing an alternate option.
Exactly. I just don't want him in the conversation. Nick is great, and I will hear nothing of it.
Who did you pick? Who are your alternates?
I didn't really have alternates to meet with Burns. It's there's no one else. This was the easiest one when he jumped to mind. This is the first one I picked because I'm I can't think of someone else. I brought up Scrooge McDuck from DuckTales, but again, to me, it's Burns. All right, should we do Marley next or Cratchit?
Let's do Cratchit and then save Marley.
Okay, I like mine, so I'll let you go first.
Okay,
and this one I do have an alternate.
Okay, so I'm thinking like for both. This kind of also ties in with Mrs. Cratchit. Now I know in Muppet Christmas Carol it was Emily Cratchit. I'm not sure if that was her name in the original as well, but I got both Mr. and Mrs. Cratchit. And if you think about it, they're actually not that interesting to the story on their own. It's all about Scrooge and how he treats them. Like even a Muppet Christmas Carol, yeah, it's Kermit, and of course it's going to be Kermit, but Kermit doesn't have really many of the great memorable lines. It's just a couple. So who could we get like an established couple in a show that could maybe have an interesting dynamic within Scrooge? And so I went with Jim and Pam from The Office, because while Scrooge is being all Scrooge, Jim could be doing his looks to the camera and whatever. And I'm sure you could find something interesting with Pam. And they got kids built in that no one cares about because that's like the Cratchit kids. Other than Tiny Tim, they're just there.
That's good. I didn't group them as a couple, but as you said that about a couple, I could totally see it being like a Rose and Bernard from Lost situation.
Yeah,
I
I
could
can see
see
that.
that being that. Because for me, I look at Cratchit, and so I'll give Mrs. Cratchit as well in a second. I look at Bob Cratchit. I look at like a kind guy, great heart, but he's not so much like a sad sack, but he's like a type that he's not going to go against the grain. He's not going to like really push Scrooge. He's just going to be grateful for what he has, and he's just going to be a great apprentice. You know who fits that to a T? Al Borland from Home Improvement.
Oh,
I was
that's
so.
right.
Isn't that such a good pick?
He,
When I thought of that, I'm like, that is phenomenal.
and he is that way where it's like he's a little bit less well off than Tim in the show. So he's like, I could see him having like the money troubles and stuff like that, and still being like just so sincere all the time. Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, because he's Cratchit's a little naive, and his wife isn't. And I maybe leaned a little bit too much into the Miss Piggy side of it, because I think they take that cynicism that Emily Cratchit has to a higher degree than is in the original story. But I still thought of, okay, who's like Susie Homemaker type that would also be like, I will speak my mind and you should speak your mind. And I thought of also from The Office, Angela. I think she would be a good Mrs. Cratchit.
Although Al and Angela would be
That's
a
a
terrible
weird
couple.
that's a weird pairing, admittedly, but on their own in a vacuum, I think it works.
See, I only thought about couples. My alternates for that was Corey and Topanga, and then Marshall and Lily.
Nice. I thought of for an alternate for Bob. I thought of talking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I thought Boyle was also in that same
Oh yeah.
realm of a great supporter, very optimistic, and easy to be thankful for what he has.
I've also thought if they were to do a Christmas Carol just within the Brooklyn Nine-Nine characters, Boyle would be Tiny Tim within that universe. He's not my Tiny Tim, but he would be.
I do have to say, my first thought, and I know we're jumping ahead, but my first thought for Ghost of Christmas Present was Scully. The flat top one, because he loves food. He's just not so like boisterous and joyous as much as. So I went with someone else who I thought was great.
Yeah.
But let's look at Marley then.
Okay, you go first, because my Marley is better than your Marley.
I really like my Jacob Marley, but I'm interested to see yours. So obviously Marley it's like Diet Scrooge. It's a version of Scrooge where it's like an older grumpy guy that he really cared about all the wrong things in life. And to me, a guy who is old and grumpy and cares about the wrong things is Bob Kelso from Scrubs.
Oh yeah, that's a good choice.
Thank you. I was so proud of these.
Because he has just enough of like heartfelt moments to be like, I'm like, it's too late for me, but I'm gonna warn you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So again, this is where cheating comes in. Okay, so you think about Jacob Marley. His whole role is to say like, I did bad stuff, don't be like me, and he's already in shackles, so it's too late for him. Bill Cosby?
Oh. Oh. Why would you go there?
Because it's the best / worst choice.
Oh no, it's the character. It's the TV character.
I know. So I have alternates.
Your joke is great though. It's painful, but it's great.
If I had to pick a TV character, I think Michael from The Good Place would be good, even
Oh,
though he does redeem himself.
that is a really unique idea. I wouldn't have thought of that. I like it.
Yeah. And I also thought about Pierce Hawthorne from Community.
Oh, that's another good one. You have some good backups. My other backup I had for it, but spoiler, I didn't want to use too high Met Your Mother characters, was Barney. I think Kelso fits better, but I like Barney in that, like, he lives life in the fast lane. He's going to die 20 years earlier than he probably should, unless, because he's a rich guy, he might just buy all the technology that'll keep him alive longer than than someone living like him should stay alive. But he's that type that he's going to be at the end of his life of, I wasted it on this stuff, and wanting to, he has that same thing with Kelso where you see a lot of humanity in him throughout the seasons, but not enough to completely change his character.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right.
Who should we go with next? Should we go to Tiny Tim?
Sure. Let's get him out of the way, and then we'll hit the ghosts.
Okay. My Tiny Tim again was kind of cheating because this will come back to it being narrated by Captain Holt and Jake. You'd have to write in there that Jake is a fan of Parks and Rec, which I think it wouldn't be too out of a stretch. And it would be Tiny Tom. It'd be Tom Haverford. And then he would have Tom like breaking character and be like, what the hell, man? You made me a tiny sick kid. Kind of like when Jerry drew Tom as the fat baby in his painting.
That was great. I like the other one where he hired somebody to do art, and then he just like, I've been staring at this for 3 hours.
Yeah.
That is a really good pick. I like that. Cheating, I will 100% let you get away with. I think that's fun.
I can't think of, I just couldn't think of like a kid from a TV show that would be interesting enough to be Tiny Tim.
So there's a show that I'm pretty sure you haven't seen. I think we talked about it that you haven't seen, but the show called Once Upon a Time. It is about a storybook, like fairy tales come to the like real world.
Yeah.
They come through this portal and they all end up getting stuck in like this one town, but there's a spell in the town from Snow White's villain. And so she has got everyone under her spell and has also got there's this kid named Henry, and he's the one who I'd picked for Tiny Tim. But Henry, he finds his real mom and is like, you are this chosen one that is able to break the spell. And so it's a little bit like Santa Claus in that way, where the kids like believe the entire time. So he's like trying to convince her for this whole first season that she really is this chosen special person, that there's good inside of her, that she can break the spell, that her being there is enough to break the spell, all this sort of stuff. So he's got like this never-ending hope and this never-ending optimism. I'm like, that is perfect for Tiny Tim. He's not sick through it, but he has the same thing, that same DNA of like, Tiny Tim has a great heart. And so that's where ended up with him, and I think that he's a really good pick for Tiny Tim.
Okay, I'll have to take your word on that, because like I said, that's one of the shows that it's been like, it's kind of a long enough running show that it's kind of like daunting to think about going back and watching it, but I might at some point.
It's really good for like the first half, and then it starts to taper off. And then I think it even does a spinoff after that, which I didn't see. It did a spinoff early on in Wonderland, and that didn't make it past the season. And then it does like another, like after 8 or 9 seasons or something like that.
While we're on the subject of Tiny Tim, so we recently watched Muppets Haunted Mansion, and in Muppets Haunted Mansion, there's they show a bunch of different Muppets. One of the Muppets they show is Robin, Kermit's nephew, who was Tiny Tim in Muppet Christmas Carol. And in Muppets Haunted Mansion, because they wanted them to seem like old timey ghosts a little bit, he's wearing his Tiny Tim outfit from Muppet Christmas Carol.
Nice. Oh, here's another thing that will get you to watch Once Upon a Time more quickly, I think. A lot of people who worked on Lost worked on Once Upon a Time.
I knew that much. I knew that.
Okay. It's framed in a similar way, too, where it like will show you flashbacks from their fairy tales that will also help kind of build on what's going on in the story, that episode. So they do the exact same framing device that way.
All right. Sounds good. So who should we go through to next?
Let's go. I feel like my Ghost of Christmas Future is anticlimactic. So let's start there and go backwards.
Okay.
So this was the one that I felt was like, because it has the look of the Ghost of Christmas Future, but not the sound. So in Family Guy, they actually have a character Death, and
Yeah.
Death is played by Norm Macdonald. And I'm like, you've got like the look down perfectly, but this is a brooding character that doesn't say anything. So you'd have to like cut out the Norm Macdonald voice, which sadly he died 2 months ago, and that really stinks. He was a great comedian, but now he won't be voiced by him anymore. So I guess you've got just Death itself. So a little bit of cheating for me. I wasn't super proud of this one, but there's one that I came up with.
Okay. Well, I went with a few different options. One would rely on him actually speaking, which would break it, but it would be like the tall, towering thing, and then from inside, you hear the booming voice of Brad Garrett as Robert Barone from Everydale's Raymond.
Yep.
Otherwise, if it's got to be someone on screen, you see their face and they don't talk; they just look like sickly and death. I'm thinking of Stewart from The Big Bang Theory.
Ooh, that's a good pick.
And then
I think,
yeah,
I think another backup character for like being lumber, like I think you just described Lurch from Addams Family.
oh yeah, that's one that's it's like so perfect. It's almost on the nose and boring. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have another one? It sounded like you had another backup.
Well, the only ones were there. I thought if you went a completely different direction, it had to just be like a sassy, mean character. You could go either April from Parks and Rec or Gina from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
April would like rush to play Ghost of Christmas Future. She would love it, except for she'd want like gross, crazy lines.
Yeah.
All right, Ghost of Christmas Present. I like this one. Do you want to go first?
You know what? Why don't you go first? Because I'm still debating between one or two of mine.
All right. Then one of them is probably the one I'm thinking of, that you've got a large guy, loves food, full of joy, like has this heart for like that is just so infectious. And to me, no one else on TV fits that like Hurley from Lost.
No, Hurley wasn't on there, but Hurley actually would be like the perfect choice.
I know, right?
Present. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. And he's even got like you could see him doing the spirit and like having the right temperament and yeah. I think my top choice has got to be similar. Actually, as you were describing and building him, I thought you were about to say Kevin Malone from The Office.
Oh, Kevin's sweet. I think he's a little too dumb for a Ghost of Christmas. He has most of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you went big in a different way, you could also say Terry Jeffords from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Can you tell I'm watching through Brooklyn Nine-Nine? These characters are in my head.
I would enjoy seeing a Terry Jeffords Ghost of Christmas Present. It's against type, but I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Terry has to get to a farmer's market.
Normally, someone talking in the third person is obnoxious, talking to you, Elmo. But I mean, with Terry, it works.
Elmo just got put on blast.
Oh, I could put Elmo on blast a lot more than that, but we don't have the time because people will start hitting the skip button right about now.
That's true. Was there anyone else that you had?
I only briefly considered Eric Matthews from Boy Meets World. Again, not the type, but like the bright personality.
There you go. All right. So Ghost of Christmas Past, I like that pick. You're absolutely right. The personality is there. Ghost of Christmas Past, for me, this was a hard one to come up with my parameters. What did you view as parameters for how you decided you were picking Ghost of Christmas Past?
I don't know. It's like there's not a whole lot to go on with the Ghost of Christmas Past. Like they're starting the journey, showing them their past. I thought maybe like someone who would either like be really energetic to start off, like this is where we're starting off, showing your past, or someone who would be just very like matter of fact, like this is what happened. Mm-hmm. So I kind of went with either one of those.
I think for me, what I was looking at was in most of them that I've seen, I feel like the Ghost of Christmas Past is really the most ghost-like. You know, Ghost of Future is ghost-like, but he's like death, ominous ghost.
Yeah.
Where Ghost of Christmas Past is kind of like that Casper the Friendly Ghost type. And so Me, the one that I picked for Ghost of Christmas Past was a little bit outside the box, but I really liked it. It was the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager. Now, what happens in Star Trek Voyager, Mike, if you're listening, you know, Star Trek Voyager, it's about them getting stranded out far away, way away from home. And so their doctor dies early on, and they have to use the emergency doctor, who is a hologram. And so he's like a Data stand-in, you know, from Next Generation or the Vulcan stand-in, where it's like learning how to be human and becoming more human and adapting his programming. And so he's very matter of fact and very like, he's got that ghost-like type thing of, you know, he's not real, he's a hologram. So I was like, this is I like that pick. I like the out of the box thinking.
You do have any alternates?
My other alternate would be something that's more real, but from Firefly, the show, the girl River, that she has psionic abilities, and so
I think she'd be
but
really
she's
good.
a little weird. Yeah, but she's like thin and can be like that ghostly type if you did the right makeup on her. So.
Well, I went a completely different direction for my main Ghost of Christmas Past. Someone who would just matter of factly state things and not talk a whole lot. How about Ron Swanson? Like, this is your past.
That would be fun. It's outside what we typically see. But then again, so was the taxi driver from Scrooged with Bill Murray, you know, so.
Yeah. Well, it's like you could see him being like Scrooge, kind of realizing, I put away everything. I ignored everybody just for the pursuit of money. And instead of being comforting at all, Ron Swanson would just be like, correct.
You can even have like this is almost like community service for him, that he's doing this, and like, just I'm here, I'm doing this, I'm just gonna be a part of it.
If you the other way you could go is if you say like, you were starting you on your journey, all of a sudden you pick up Ranjit from How I Met Your Mother, just going, hello.
And there you go, taxi driver from Scrooge. That fits. It works.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, did you cast the nephew?
Yes.
Scrooge's nephew. Okay, good, because I almost forgot about that. I was like, oh, we don't have. So Scrooge's nephew is inviting Scrooge to Christmas, even though he knows the type of person Scrooge is. That takes someone who really loves Christmas, who really values family no matter what they do, and who is like, I'm going to be nice to you no matter what. You know who does that? Marshall Erickson.
Marshall would be really good.
That was where I was like, that was my second easiest to cast.
You know who else is pretty sincere? Winston from New Girl.
Oh, I can see that. And Winston's a little odd for that, but I can't knock Winston.
But you could tie it in and be at the end and be like, he goes through all of this stuff, and at the end you realize that Winston like drugged him and went through this whole psychotic break. Like, I pranked you to make you nice.
You've got the weirdest version of a Christmas Carol I've ever heard.
No, but
mine is all like nice and well, I probably would. Mine is all nice and dignified, and then you're just like, you're a fever dream waiting to happen.
I got Winston drugging him. I got Bill Cosby in it,
and Bill Cosby was there for some reason.
It's like, remember back when Saturday Night Live did their 40th anniversary special, and this was right around the time when everything was coming out about Bill Cosby. And they did a bold move. They did a Celebrity Jeopardy where it was like a video clue advertising like alcohol. And all of a sudden it was Kenan Thompson as Bill Cosby, like, my favorite alcohol. And then all of a sudden they had to cut him off. Like, I'm sorry. We filmed that in June. Like,
that's good. I'll take a moment here because I like to praise this guy because that exact same thing. But when that came out, they had Eddie Murphy, like, they were like, oh, Eddie Murphy's going to be a part of this, and he ended up only like, he did like a monologue thing, and it wasn't like a super funny monologue. It was more like a tribute monologue to something, and then he didn't have any scenes. And I remember afterwards, like, someone asked him about it, and he or someone asked like one of the writers or something like that, and it came out that like they had the stuff he was going to do where he was really like taking on Bill Cosby, and Eddie Murphy was just essentially like, I don't need to make those jokes. I don't need that laugh. And I was just like, that for a guy who's been around as much, and he could make it funny. And I'm sure there was, like you said, that joke that they did there, it's rife for humor. And it's not like we don't want to make fun of someone who does terrible things, because you shouldn't do terrible things, and I'm not going to be sensitive about your feelings if you're being an awful person. But I really always appreciated that Eddie Murphy was like, I don't think that I need to do that.
Yeah.
That was good on him.
I get that. And you got to have your own lines on what you joke about or not.
Yeah. Yep. Eddie Murphy's always been pretty great about that. He's always been good about also letting other people shine. Like if you watch his movies, he has his moments, but he does a really good job of playing straight to other people too, when he knows that that's what's going on. I love it.
One bonus one, I didn't tell you this. I thought about it last minute. A bonus category. So I'm not sure how it is in the original one. I keep going to the Muppet Christmas Carol. If you couldn't tell, that's my main foray into this story. And when they're in the past, you see Scrooge as a young adult, and his boss is Fozzie Bear, and they're having the big Christmas party. He's like, "What? We're spending so much money on this party." And Fozzie was like, "Don't worry about it. It's a party. Just enjoy yourself." Thinking a young boss could be Michael Scott hosting the Dundies.
Oh, Michael Scott would be a good Fezziwig, where Fezziwig's not so much a dope, but he is like that. Yeah, he throws caution to the wind in service of, I want to be great for my employees. Yeah. And I want to have a good time with my employees, and I want all of my employees to have a really good time. He fits that really well.
Yeah. Also, the Muppets lucked out that the name was Fezziwig. It works really well to just change it to Fozziwig.
It does. You're right. I was just trying to think through like all the Christmas Carol incarnations I've seen, because I've seen the Muppet one, I've seen the Jim Carrey one, I've seen like that. There's this old one where you see even Scrooge in hell towards the end. It's like done in the 70s or 60s. Yeah, I don't know why they're like, let's expand this a little bit more. So he gets locked in hell, and his room in hell is his office, but it's like frozen. It's like all of hell's hot, and then he gets thrown in like this frozen room and chained to like the middle pipe or whatever. That was a weird one. Saw the Scrooged, of course. The Disney
Mickey's Christmas Carol,
Christmas one. That's 5. I feel like I've seen more, but those are the only 5. Those are the 5 I'm thinking of right now.
The basic premise of it has been spoofed a lot, even if they don't do a full whole movie about it.
Yes, absolutely. That's 100% true. So, hey, let us know what your favorite version of Christmas Carol is. Let us know if there's people like, dude, you missed an obvious one, or if you're like, I think this would be a really good idea, and who you would cast. And then tell us what you think of our casting too. I think we both really enjoyed our own and each other's. This was a lot of fun.
Also, this was fun to do. So let us know if there's other like famous stories that we should recast with TV characters, because I would do this again.
You know who should do this more? The Muppets. They should do that. There's been like people are pushing for, now that Great Gatsby, I think, is the rights have expired, and so now it's like free reign for them to do that. People really want to see a Muppets Great Gatsby. I think the Muppets do really well, like with Muppet Treasure Island and Muppet Christmas Carol. They do really good when they take established things and that they insert themselves into it. I always enjoy seeing those.
I think the Muppets would also work really well doing the Blues Brothers. And they already have a built-in lack of female characters in both.
There is an episode of Movies on a Monday that I really enjoyed doing, but it was take a movie and you keep one actor and replace everyone else with Muppets. And what would be the movie? Who would you keep? And what would some of the Muppets play? That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I remember you texted me about that, and I told we were texting back and forth. Another great one would be Ocean's 11, and you keep you keep Andy Garcia.
Andy Garcia. That's 100% right. That's who you would keep in there. I think you'd have to keep him over like George Clooney.
Yeah.
But he'd be number 2 if there's anyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Matt, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What's the name of that movie? The guy's name is Scott. He's a divorced dad, and he's trying to spend time with his kid. And he ends up stealing a suit from an old man, and he ends up doing the job of that old man for a little while. What's that movie called?
I know that there's 2 answers, and that no matter what I pick, you're going to say, no, I meant this other one. The one that immediately jumped to mind was Santa Claus, but what's the other one that also fits that description?
Ant-Man.
Damn. Gee,
Scott stole a suit from an old man, does the job of that old man.
that's true. Well done.
Yeah. I can't take credit for it. I stole that from a TikTok, but I was like, it's perfect. And both of them are named Scott, just makes it even more perfect.
Yep. Santa Claus is one of my top. Real quick, before we jump into trivia, that I don't remember last week's trivia. My bad. We didn't remember this
I
beforehand.
remember it.
Okay, one of us is on the ball. But before we get into that, what is like either your favorite Christmas movie or like what's one that this year you're like I'm wanting to watch this movie this year?
I think one of my favorites is just, I mean, it's an obvious classic, which is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I'm talking about the one with Jim Carrey.
I like Jim Carrey version too.
I think the production value on that and the music and everything is just done so well.
Jim Carrey carries that really well. I sent you a Jim Carrey Grinch GIF earlier, so you're welcome.
You did earlier
Somehow
today.
I knew that. Earlier today, even. I would say for this year, the one that for some reason I'm like, I really want to watch that this year is Scrooge with Bill Murray. That's not my I must see it every single year, but this year I want to. We do watch Die Hard every year. We watch Home Alone and we watch Santa Claus. Santa Claus I really enjoy. I think it's just a great story. I love like the father-son connection. I feel like it's a lot deeper than that movie needed to be. So
Yeah. Also on Disney Plus, just added to their collection Muppets Christmas Letters to Santa, which is like, okay, there's more Muppets on Disney Plus, but that's what you're putting on there. It's not terrible. It's just I don't see anyone becoming a fan of the Muppets after watching that special. So,
what's the one where Kermit does "It's a Wonderful Life" towards the end?
it's it's a dumb title. It's called "It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie."
What a stupid title! How dare you, Muppets! I want to rewatch that sometime because I think I've watched it once, and I might not have even gotten to finish it. I think I had to leave like in the last 15 minutes or something like that. But
that one also had the Scrubs cast, the whole Scrubs cast being a cameo because Miss Piggy was going to be an extra on Scrubs, and Kermit had to go get her.
Nice.
And that was also the first major production where Frank Oz's characters had been recast by Eric Jacobson. So in that one, he does his Piggy is a little better. His Fozzie hadn't really gotten landed yet. You can really tell with that character in that one.
Gotcha. Oh, I'll have to pay attention to that when I watch it. Whenever I find it, put it on there, Disney. Stop wussing out. By the way, Disney Plus, because TV shows, I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend the Olaf Presents. There's a series of shorts where Olaf just tells what happens in certain Disney movies. So he gives you like a 3-minute version of The Little Mermaid, but it's like fast-paced, choppy, like him just doing all the parts. It's really funny. I'm sure Josh Gad had a blast doing it. Go watch it if you haven't seen it.
All right, let's jump into trivia. Last week we talked about Squid Game, and I mentioned why was in the honeycomb scene, why did they make the playground so huge?
That's right. And I don't think you told me that day. And so in the middle of this week, I thought of it, and I'm like, what's the answer?
I read this on one of those like random facts lists. I think it's because they wanted to simulate how playgrounds felt when you were a little kid. And so when you're a little kid, everything is so much bigger than you. And so to mirror that, they made like a giant playground.
And the reason I feel like that's important is because in that scene, one person specifically draws attention to it. I was like, why is the playground so big? It's like one of those Lost questions, you know, and Lost, and they're going to ask a question. You know that the writers put it in there because they want to draw your attention to something. So I was just like, what? What's the big secret about this giant playground? But it's that. All right. There's a movie that came out a couple years ago called The Man Who Invented Christmas about Charles Dickens. And in that movie, there's actually someone who plays a version of Scrooge. What is the name of the actor who plays Scrooge in The Man Who Invented Christmas? It's on Hulu. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a good movie.
All right. I don't know this one.
There you go. Well, that is it. We're a little bit away from Christmas, but it's never too early to wish you guys Merry Christmas. Have a great holiday season. Enjoy your time. Enjoy your family. Enjoy the people around you that are in your life. And enjoy these podcasts. We love making them for you. So until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
We're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.